So I think one thing there is like we went through what does it look like buying with Jordan. We went through some kind of different topics. And one thing I want to go to is like, what does the application process look like when you're coming to LendCity? You know, you're going to, it's a simple process. It's really 6 steps, and you could even say it's five. I want to go through those steps. Maybe we can throw it on the screen and just see how easy it is. But so there's 6 simple steps, and I'm cutting one out because review and submit I don't see as a step. But so that's basically we start with getting started. We start with getting to know the borrowers. We go to your income. We ask for banking, but we don't need it, but we'll talk about that later. We ask for your assets. We ask for your properties, any property information. What we're trying to do is get as much information to build a file to a lender to show your strengths. And we got to know everything in order to figure out how do we take a snapshot of your client that you've sent us to make them the strongest, to give them the best possible chance to get the best possible rates and terms from different lenders. One cool thing before I get into the application is everyone always worries about credit, running my credit. One thing that I would say, you mentioned going to a bank for a pre-approval or going to a mortgage agent for a pre-approval. One key difference is we take your credit one time. We can shop the whole market to our 70 plus lenders, whoever it is, with that one credit. We don't have to go to Scotiabank and another bank and another bank, and they just keep slamming your credit. We are going to hit it once, and we are going to best utilize that hit. So that's one thing I would hit on. But so getting into what does the application process look like? Getting started. What types of information you're going to see? I'm going to read it right from the screen. We want to know how can we help you reach your goals. So you start the application and you start off by, we ask you, are you buying a property? Are you refinancing a property? Are you renewing a mortgage? And sometimes you're doing, if you're like me, you're doing a bunch at the same time. You have a tick box. Based on what you fill in there, it will ask you specific questions. So it's not just a standard application form where you got to fill out things that are not, they're not necessary. We only ask you questions that are needed in this. So if I clicked on buy a property, our next things we care about is, have you found a property? If yes, what is the purchase price, and what is the down payment you're bringing to the property, and when is the closing date? Because as Kristen mentioned earlier, like, we are on it. If it's a live deal, and if it's not, we're still on it. But if it's a live deal, it goes on a board, and that is not, we're putting full attention, no matter what time it is, to make sure every minute counts. And that's something that we pride ourselves on here at LendCity. But going further, if we want to know the property address, we get the basic property information when we talk about getting started. We'll actually ask you if you have a realtor. And if you say yes, we'll ask you who that realtor is, what their contact information is, so we can make sure that we are communicating effectively on your behalf with your realtor. It's really because we know that deals are much more smoother when there's communication going on with the client and also with the other professionals involved in the deal, meaning the realtor, and the lawyer.
Super important.
It's very important. Step 2, getting started. We want to know the borrower. So we ask you just basically the general information that's on your ID, your first and last name, and all those, to do your date of birth and those types of things. That's the next thing that we kind of capture. And if there's more than one borrower, if you have a wife or a husband, you're going to have a section, you're going to get to the end and say, okay, add a borrower. You can keep adding whoever you want on the file. And that's what the application is set up to do. The third thing we look for is income. We want to know, income can be tricky, right? Because it can come from a lot of different places. We know that it's employed people, self-employed, pensions, spousal support, child support. There's like all of these different ways where we can get your income from. So based on what you click here, there's a list. You click on that list. If you click employed, we're going to ask you specific questions to employment. If you click on self-employed, we're going to ask you different questions. So we've tailored this application to be smart. And to be smart based on what are you putting in, and we're only going to ask you what we need to. So if you clicked on I'm employed, We're going to ask you where you've been employed. We're going to ask you how long have you been employed. These are all things that help us build the strength of the file. Um, we ask, are you full-time, part-time, seasonal? All these things will help us ask for either more documents, or it will help us build the strength of the file. Um, that's kind of it for income. The fourth thing we're going to ask is banking. But I'm going to tell you right now, we don't need your banking stuff. We don't use the program where you have to put all your banking information. We're going to ask you specifically for documents when the file's done and we've reviewed it, what we need. And Kristen will kind of get into that after you fill out the application, what happens when I'm done this spiel. The fifth thing is that is your assets. Assets are important. People sometimes don't think that they want to put their assets, but lenders want to see assets. They want to see, are you getting a gift from a family member? Do you have household goods that are very valuable? Or do you have a vehicle? How much is it worth? Life insurance, that's another asset that people usually forget. So we collect all that information because we want to build the best file, because it's all about making the best case to these lenders. And the last thing we do is, what kind of properties do you have? Do you own the property? Are you renting? Those types of information. When we have that, we have enough. All we do now is you're going to get an option to review everything you filled in here. And you can review it. You press submit. And within seconds, I have it. This team has it. And then we're going off. So I guess, Kristen, to supplement what I just said, done with this, what happens when we receive a file, or what can they expect in terms of consents and those types of things?
So, Paul, if it's somebody who just goes to our website, LendCity Mortgages, and fills in an application from there, or if it's someone that you guys refer, what happens is, as soon as this application is completed, it'll go right to our inbox. And from there, we can see the borrower's first and last name, and we click on it, and it opens it up. And at that point, we go through our system. We figure out if they're a past client looking to buy another house, or looking to refinance, or if there's somebody new that we've never worked with. And if your application's filled out properly, you will have like a phone number and an email in there. And one of our mortgage agents, or if it's your lead, Paul, I would reach out to you. And we'll connect with the client almost, I would say, within 5 minutes. I'll send out a second consent, well, not a second consent form. There's a consent form in the application, but you can disregard that. But we'll send you a consent form. We need to have that to run a hard credit check. And I would also send you an intro email. And from there, I would introduce myself, kind of explain, based off your application, these are the documents I would need to support it. And I also like to list at the bottom of my intro email what things to budget for. A lot of clients don't know that they need a budget for closing costs, especially if they're not a first-time home buyer and they get hit with that land transfer tax. Lawyers, I shouldn't say nobody, but the general population doesn't know that they need a lawyer to close out a purchase or a refinance. Then there's always like an appraisal cost, something like that. But I would say the second this application is completed, it hits our inbox, we're reaching out to you within 5 minutes.
Service.